I know you wanted to know about some of the, volunteer stuff and things. Well, Roxy and I do, she does quite a bit with animals. She's an animal activist. She does a lot of the shelters and find
Yes.
homes for
Hmm.
all the dogs and all of that. So she gets me to come along when we're doing a fundraiser, and we did one in Hollywood at Hamburger Mary's, and it was a bingo night. And the two of us got together with a few of our close Glow fans, and we raised, I don't know, several $1,000s in a couple hours just playing bingo and having the presents and giving away some Glow, prizes along with all kinds of other stuff.
Merchandise.
Yeah, but she's a real big advocate for the animal shelters and helping out with that. And she works with Godiva, who's also
Mm.
a shelter in the Orange County area. So that's one of the things that I do, but that's just because I love animals, and I help her when they're looking to raise money. But I also do work with the homeless organization with a lady named Katrina Williams, who is in the Los Angeles area and is CFM, which is Changing Faces of Homelessness. And we do not Skid Row, and then some other outside areas in Carson and Torrance, and some of the populated areas that are really, really in need of help for homelessness. And there's one that's for senior citizens, and it's a mobile home uh, encampment. And I'm a senior now, so we got to help our generation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's sad. It's really, really sad. There isn't enough help from the city, the government, the federal government even. It's very sad. Our veterans that are left homeless, and they fought for our country, and we leave them on the streets. So that's one of the things that's dear to my heart, is helping out, because you never know when that could be you. And unfortunately for me, if you would have asked me would I've ever been homeless, I would have said no, never, ever. And I was homeless for 3 months. My ex-husband cheated on me, left me with nothing, and stole my
sorry.
money. Yeah, and I was homeless for 3 months, living in my van. You
That's
know,
so hard because you don't have any place to really go, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and it's just
and luckily for me,
miserable.
I was on the high end of being homeless. Like I did have some places to go certain times, and I did have food, but I'm a diabetic, so I had a lot of, it was hard being where I have insulin that has to be refrigerated, so I frequented like Starbucks and Del Taco, and they would provide ice for me to put in baggies to put in my cooler bag, small little cooler bag that I keep my insulin in. And so there were some, trying times and such, but I physically slept in my van for 3 months. I went to the gym every day, and I worked out, showered and changed at the gym, and hung out at Starbucks. And the people at Starbucks are wonderful. And, I did all my things that I needed to do, doctor's appointments and what have you. But so that part is, something that I like to work on and volunteer, and I get some of my wrestling friends involved. The other thing is I'm an advocate for suicide prevention, and
Yes.
working with a
What you
couple
good
or
for?
with bullying. So in particular, recently, I met someone who is just a wonderful lady. Her name's Kimberly Boykin, and she's actually a family therapist, and is a editor of a health and wellness magazine, and she does all these wonderful fundraisers and works with St. Jude's, and doing fundraisers for that. And she put me in touch, and I met a gentleman named Tim Flynn, who has a podcast, and it's called Breaking Bullying. And so he's had me on his show talking about bullying, because I experienced it myself. I also experienced it with my youngest son, who went through bullying in middle school. And, I found out that he was eating his lunch in the bathroom because he was being bullied, and he was being beat up at school. And, I had to go to the school several times and talk to the principal. And, he got in an altercation where somebody started beating on him, and he threw a book, and he hit the kid in the mouth and knocked his tooth out. And then the parents called saying, "Oh, we're going to sue you, this, that." And I said, "Really? Well, let's go talk to the principal. How many times has your kid bullied my son and been suspended? And now you're going to threaten me because my son was protecting himself." And
Defending himself.
defending himself because your bully kid was beating him. So that dropped like a fly, no problem. But so I've experienced it myself and in my family. And so Tim does this wonderful podcast. He's also a owner and a master instructor for karate. So he has a karate, it's called Cato Karate in Mankato, Minnesota. And I have another lady friend who is Carol Castle, who is also in Minnesota, and she works with Wrestling for Life as a nonprofit. Her son was a first responder and committed suicide. And so I've worked with her for several years. And we see each other at CAC periodically. And they have these wonderful coins that have the suicide hotline number on. And so I got them two together, which was just by coincidence, but they're both in Minnesota. I kind of have gotten into some things by way of wrestling, which is ironic. You don't really think of the connection of the two, but some of it has been regarding kids and the challenges with bullying and suicide, and not just kids, because Tim Flynn, who is, a advocate for kids and bullying, and he's been bullying himself as an adult. He's running for the school board in his town in Mankato and is getting bullying online on social media because of what he's trying to do and change the school system. Because right now in the school district that his kids go to, if there's bullying, their remedy for bullying is you have to go online, and it takes 3 weeks to report a bullying incident. And so I went on his show, and I'm over here brainstorming and just throwing ideas at him. And I'm saying, no, bullying has to be reported now, like immediately. You have to have something in place, whether it's teachers, counselors, whoever needs to be versed on all of these kinds of things. Teen suicide or just young suicide is now the number 3 cause of death in teenage all the way up to the age of 24, that it's raised, and it's that high. The pandemic didn't help. The isolation of kids and not being able to see their friends and not being able to leave the house and all those things has upped that so high. I have a personal friend who left his house, left his daughter at home, went to Home Depot or somewhere, came back, and she hung herself while he was gone.
That's terrible. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry that happened.
13, 14 years old, why,
Disgusting.
yeah, why is this happening? And yet we have adults doing the same thing to other adults who are actively trying to help resolve or implement procedures to help kids with bullying. So, so kind of brought me on board, and I am participating, as much as I can. He comes in from Minnesota to California for different events. So, I'm here. The least I can do is, help. So I'm actually going to be doing a radio show. I co-host the radio show, and I do with Patrick J. Martinez on ham radio. We usually do a few things during the month of suicide prevention, which was last month. And unfortunately, I've had personal family emergencies, and my grandson is very sick, and he's in ICU. This last go around, he's been in for 8 weeks. So I wasn't able to. Normally during that month, we do our radio show on suicide prevention, but I was out of town because my son, his family lives in Arizona. So I was there for a little bit. Otherwise, we would have done some more suicide prevention on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, it is just unbelievable how much hatred and violence there has been in the last few years, especially with young kids, with
Yeah.
kids and teenagers, because it's just it's terrible. I mean, what do you feel like the cause is for all this bullying that's going on? Is it
You
jealousy? Is it
Well, the internet and social media, we look at that as, oh God, there's all these great things now that you can do because of social media. Yes. I mean, I look at it, and I'm glad I grew up when I grew up, because the 80s was the time. And, we didn't have any of that. And so I look at the value of the things that we got to grow up on, that we didn't have all these influences. And today, kids are just inundated, and it's their life. I mean, I went to a family function, and around the sectional of the sofa all the nieces and nephews are like
Huh.
this. Every single one, like 8 of them, from all ages, from 7 on up to teenagers or whatever. And I'm thinking, what is this doing to our future of America, like, or the world, because it's worldwide. And yes, there's the benefits, but at the same time, it is a horrible place to be. Like, I have to decompress sometimes and just go offline because I get inundated with messages and message and and people expect you to respond, and I'm one of, from what some of them say, is I'm one of the few glow girls that does respond. So if I post something and people come on, I do try to comment back. It may not be today, but I will try to get back as soon as I can. And like right now, I've had to apologize to my fans and friends and family. Is I've got some issues going on, not just with my grandson, but with my own health and stuff. So I've had to kind of back away. But so imagine a teenager or a young child that is getting this negative feedback, negative bullying, just all the garbage that is on social media and that overtakes their whole world. I mean, everything revolves around that phone and social media.
Yep.
And isn't anywhere for them to go, which is what needs to happen. Is there needs to be other outlets. There's got to be a resource. There's got to be somewhere for them to say, hey, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. And I need to be able to call someone. We just don't have the resources for young kids, like the suicide prevention line that I was talking about with Carol Castle in Minnesota with Wrestling for Life. That life coin is manned by first responders. So if you call the national suicide line, you will be put on hold. So if someone's calling in dire need of help because they're thinking of suicide, you get put on hold. On this line with Carol Castle's nonprofit, those lines are manned by first responders and you will not get put on hold. The other thing that kids have a problem with is they're not going to talk to their parents. That's
Hmm.
them and I have been brainstorming on what other ways and what other channels are there available to give resources to kids who are being bullied so they don't have to tell their parents. Most of the time, it's not their parents that they talk to. It's a coach or a counselor or a drama teacher or, someone within their school or activity that they participate in. Those are their mentors and people that they trust. And so we need those people to be aware of where can you refer someone? Where is the resource for these kids? Because they're not going to tell their parents. They're not going to reach out to their parents. I've helped people across the country who are having problems with possible suicide. And I said, give me your zip code. Let me just do some research and I'll get back to you. And I called the area that they were in to get the resource for them. Here's a mental health facility where you don't have to have insurance. You can call them, you can go there, blah, 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 blah. But we need something for the kids that are old enough to know that there's a problem, but don't have a resource to reach out to.
Hmm.
So that's why we do what we're trying to do. And like for me, I just try and get it out there, whether it be a post on my social media or me doing the radio show and talking specifically about suicide and suicide prevention and what is there to do and how do you do it, or what do you need? What other resource do you need? Because maybe the resource that they need can help with the emotional and mental problems that they're having.
Yeah.